I'll tell you a story about one brick at a time. It's a story about two frogs. Two frogs from the Norwalk River, no less. Happened last summer. True story. I read it on the internet, so it must be true, right? So the two frogs from the Norwalk River decide one day they want to see the rest of the world. And so they decide to leave the little eddy where they grew up as tadpoles, you know, with these 600,000 other little tadpoles. And they start hopping. They start hopping. They get out of town. They get in the country. And they saw this brick structure. So there's the one brick at a time, right? They see this brick structure, and it's round, and it's got a little cupola on top. And they said, I wonder what that is. And so they hop up to the top of the brick structure, and they realize there's a hole, and it goes down deep. Well, the one frog, being a little bit more adventurous than his more conservative cousin, says, let's just jump across. I bet we can do this. We're frogs, right? We can do this. We've got all kinds of frog legs. We're known for that sort of thing. Tastes just like chicken, different talk for different day. So they both join hands, rub it together, and jump to the other side of the well. Almost.
Yeah, right.
And they go down the well, and they go down to the bottom of a dry well. Well, they're ribbiting for their friends to help them because they just don't know how to get out. I don't know about you, but there have been times in my life I've found myself in what it feels like the bottom of a well, and I'm just ribbiting, hoping somebody will come and give me some attention. Well, eventually their frog friends hear from the eddy, and they rush out, and they're standing on the edge of the well, and they're looking down, and they're very frightened because they see how down it is. And these are young frogs. They're not mature frogs who have earned their chops at jumping. And they just get very alarmed and very concerned, and they just start yelling, no, it's awful. You're going to die. It's just awful. Oh my gosh, it's awful. Well, they're both jumping. And finally, the one frog says, you're right. We probably are going to die here. No one will ever learn from us that frog legs taste like chicken. And he just gives up and lays there. Well, the other frog is still jumping, trying to get up, and he's saying to everybody, going, no, you can't do it, it's awful, oh my God, it's so awful. And so finally he is just so tired, and he says one last time, and whoosh, jumps, whoop, and makes it out. And everybody is just amazed by this. And they said to him, how did you do it? It was so deep, it was so far. And he said, well, you see, I'm deaf. And I couldn't read your lips, but I knew you were encouraging us. And so I knew it was possible.
Frog lips?
Frog lips, yes.
To your ears.
I knew it was possible. There's a wonderful line, probably my favorite line from the writings of Paul, when he says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds. You see, so many of us in life would see frogs, or even ourselves, at the bottom of a well, the bottom of a pit, and would buy into the notion, you can't get out. It's too far to climb. And yet, when our minds are transformed, what we are consciously made aware of and what we choose to believe, there's always a way. There is no pit too low. There is no goal too high. There's just that I am power in us. We call it the Christ. It has many names, but there's that within us that says anything is possible. But the world, meaning the consciousness of lack and limitation, would say otherwise. The world will put on headlines in the newspapers and on the news about how awful everything is and how afraid you should be because of how awful everything is. And you just might catch the most recent in vogue disease. But when your minds are renewed, when your minds are stayed on the fact that we are one with the limitless source of supply and all power in the universe, we know there's another way. There's a better way. And that's why we're here today at the center, to remind ourselves of truth. to remind ourselves of the power that lives and breathes and has its being in us, as us. I'd like to share with you a few words from the Message version of the Bible, from the Sermon on the Mount. This version of the Bible is a fairly modern retelling, and I love the verbiage because it speaks to me in a way that no other version of the scriptures do. This is in chapter 5. This is Jesus speaking. You're familiar with the old written law, love your friend, and its unwritten companion, hate your enemy. I'm challenging that. I'm telling you to love your enemies. Let them bring out the best in you, not the worst. When someone gives you a hard time, respond with the energies of prayer, for then you are working out of your true selves, your God-creative selves. This is what God does. God gives its best, the sun to warm and the rain to nourish, to everyone, regardless. The good, the bad, the nice, the nasty. If all you do is love the lovable, do you expect a bonus? Anybody can do that. If you simply say hello to those who greet you, do you expect a medal? Any run-of-the-mill person can do that. In a word, what I'm saying is, grow up. You're kingdom subjects. Now live like it. Live out your God-created identity. Live generously and graciously towards others, the way God lives in you. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. Live generously and graciously. But the lines that stand out in my mind are grow up. Grow up. Don't be like the world. Don't be in that lowest common denominator of consciousness that says we have friends and enemies. Don't be in that lowest common denominator that says we only have so many opportunities. Don't be in that lowest common denominator that says this disease will probably get me too. Grow up. Grow up. Elevate your consciousness to the point where you know the pure potentiality that each day represents. That each day can be. You're subjects of the kingdom. This is the other thing that I invite us to spend some time. And if we're subject of a kingdom, then what defines a kingdom is the rulership. And in our kingdom, in the kingdom of consciousness, the rulership is spiritual law, spiritual principle. You don't need to have advanced degrees to realize that the world operates under regular and dependable spiritual principles. Some of them are easy to understand. What goes around comes around. And if that's the case, then why would we not put anything but love in circulation? What we think on becomes our experience. It doesn't necessarily mean that we deny, as in like turn our heads away, the facts that are around us. But if we think about the greater truth, then we experience the greater truth. We don't see problems, we see opportunities. We don't see enemies, we have friends, we simply have not embraced. These are the sorts of principles that we live with. We know that there is a law of abundance, that as we give of ourselves to the universe gives back to us so richly and generously. Are you with me? You getting all this? Yeah. That's why we come to a place like Unity Center, so that we might experience a reminder of the message, of the teaching, of the spiritual law under which we live. When we talk about the giving, though, many of us sometimes wonder, in this prosperous way of thinking, what is mine to give? What is mine to give? Each one of us at times in our lives will find ourselves in an experience that might even feel like we're at the bottom of a pit. feeling alone, feeling lost, feeling at a time of redirection. Has anybody had that experience of just something's changing, something's moving? It often feels like a quiet place, and it is a quiet place and a grateful place to be in. Because in that space, we can look within ourselves and ask that question: who have I come here to be? What have I come here to do? There's a wonderful saying I recently heard. It said the two most important days of our lives are the day in which we were born and the day we understand why. The two most important days of our lives are the day in which we were born and the day we understand why. I've come to believe that that why day is every day. And the why day comes when I've looked inside of myself and asked myself, what is it that I am to give? What is it that I am to do? And here's the difficulty with that. Many of us have adopted the beliefs that other people have given to us, have projected onto us. This is what you should do. This is what you should do. This is what you can't do. This is what you can't do. This is what you can do. We have become like the world, you see. But anybody who has made a difference in the world followed the beat of their own drummer. Anybody who has made an advancement that has brought others forward has made an advancement. Much like the one we call Jesus. Jesus, living in a time of military occupation in a backwoods country with no known resources other than the people who supported him, had a teaching of spiritual law, a teaching of spiritual principle that included such things as forgive 70 times 7. That's a lot of forgiveness. I heard one of my teachers at Unity once say, here's the litmus test for if you still have forgiveness work to do. So I'm going to ask all of you to just take this test with me. If you still have a physical body, you probably have forgiveness work. Anybody here with a physical body? We have a few discarnate entities in the back. Thank you for joining us. We're so grateful to have you here at Unity Center today. You've done your work. Thank you for being here. The other teaching that was his to teach, turn the other cheek. Related to that, it's a teaching of forgiveness. Love God. Love your neighbor as yourself. The implication, of course, you love yourself. Love your neighbor. The neighbors he was talking about were these Romans, the oppressive military governors. Could we do that? Could we open that heart chakra so much that we would be willing to love those who were oppressors? The great teaching is even the oppressors were oppressed. The Romans in our lives were at one time oppressed. So we must spend some time asking ourselves, what is mine to do? For Jesus, it was to teach. It was to heal. Each one of us has our own calling and our own uniqueness. The difficulty for us, I think, that we experience is when it starts emerging from us and we may not have a box to put it in. We may not have seen this model before. Maybe nobody from our family has done anything like this. My sister is here from New York City. We don't have very many ministers in the family. We have one. We don't have many artists in the family. We have one. Each one of us called to be who we're to be. The Apostle Paul spoke about this in his letter to the Romans, and I'd like to share a few words about that he shared, again, from the Message Bible. If you preach, just preach God's message, nothing else. If you help, don't take over. If you teach, stick to your teaching. If you give encouraging guidance, be careful that you don't get bossy. If you're put in charge, don't manipulate. If you're called to give aid to people in distress, keep your eyes open and be quick to respond. If you work with the disadvantaged, don't let yourself get irritated with them or depressed by them. Keep a smile on your face. Love from the center of who you are. Don't fake it. Run for dear life from evil. Hold on for dear life to the good. Be good friends who love deeply. Practice playing second fiddle. Don't burn out. Keep yourselves fueled and aflame. Be alert servants of the Master, cheerfully expectant. Don't quit in hard times. Pray all the harder. Isn't that wonderful? Wonderful, encouraging words that invite us to do what's ours to do. I'd like to engage in an exercise now, and if you're willing, I invite you to close your eyes with me and take a deep breath and just feel the vibration of this space, this sacred gathering, the sacred and intentional community of friends who are more than friends, who are each in our own ways helpers and teachers. And ask yourself, ask that I am in you. What's mine to do today? How can I serve? How might I be a blessing to the world in a way that I never have before? Why am I so empowered to serve? What's new for me? And don't be surprised if an image or a sensation or an observation comes to mind of something you may never thought of before. Or something you may have said to yourself as a child you couldn't do. And today you can. Today you are free with the life of spirit. Today you can set it in motion. Today you are it. And so I invite you to open your eyes. And your homework today, in your prayer time, when you get home, is to go home and write this down. To make a sacred covenant with yourself. I will set this in motion. I will pick up what I have dropped. I will not allow anything to be against me in the fulfillment of what I've been called to express, because I am creativity and I am creative. I will allow myself to love myself today more and better than I ever have, because I am love and I am loved. Make the commitment today to do the things for your greater health and well-being that you may have laid aside and thought, no, I couldn't do that. Because today you are whole and complete, as you've always been. That's yours to do. To look within yourself and know that what Spirit reveals is possible. It already exists, because if it exists in mind, it can exist in hand. All it takes is your willingness to believe it, to build it brick by brick. You see, and in the building of brick by brick, it's just one step at a time. There's a story that's told of two craftsmen who were working on the building of the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. They were brick masons. And they knew that the project would take longer than their entire natural lives. And somebody asked one of them, "What are you? What are you doing?" So he said, "I'm a brick builder. I make bricks." And they said to the second one the same question, "What are you?" He goes, "I'm a cathedral maker. I build cathedrals." Yes, brick by brick. Your life is a cathedral. Your life is necessary for this world. And the little things that you do impact everyone. The ways in which you know the truth about yourself are a blessing to others. because you are a radiating center of divine life, here to express the goodness, or to live out the words of Jesus. I came that they might have life and have it abundantly. Christ consciousness lives in you so that you might have life and have it abundantly. Set your dreams in motion and give thanks in advance for your abundant life, because it is more so than you may have ever realized. Peace be with you, and namaste.